I think investing in AMD stock is a no-brainer. I personally is invested in AMD stock, and let's take a quick look into it. AMD stock has been performing pretty well for the past 1 month. They have already grew more than 20%, and there's a reason behind it. If you were to look at its Q1 2025 earnings, all four businesses is doing, some is not doing as well, but overall, all four businesses is going to do and flourish very well in 2025. Currently, the data centers business is around 50% of the total AMD business, followed by client at 31 and gaming and embedded around 10% each. So let's look into all four business segment and see how it is going to grow for 2025. If we were to look into the gaming segment, you will realize that for 2025 Q4 PS5 Pro and the equivalent for Microsoft Xbox is going to be launched, and this will definitely drive up the console sales. And why is this important for AMD? Is because all the chips that Sony and Microsoft uses comes from AMD. So if the console were to sell well, AMD is going to benefit from it. On top of that, for 2025, GTA 6, this blockbuster gaming title, is going to be launched as well, and this will further drive console businesses. If you were to look into history, you'll realize that when PS4 Pro launched in Q4 of 2016, sales actually grew, and when PS5 launched in Q4 of 2020, the console business also went up. I think this is actually a refresh and not a totally new launch. For example, PS6, it will be conservative if we compare it to the revenue increase for PS4 Pro. So for PS4 Pro, this increase from a year-on-year basis is around 20%. So I think for PS5 Pro, this is what we should also expect. If you were to look into the client business, you can see that their client business is around 1.4 billion 1 year ago, and currently for this quarter is at 2.3 billion, and that's an increase of 68% year on year. This is mainly due to three parts. First, they have a very, very strong product portfolio. Their Ryzen is doing very well for their desktop and laptop. Furthermore, they also have chips that can tap on the AI PC market. And lastly, is due to Dell, HP, and Lenovo. They are all refreshing their post-pandemic systems. Furthermore, Windows is going to end their support for Windows 10. So the enterprise is accelerating their upgrades. I expect this to hold up for the rest of 2025. If you were to look at the past AMD's client segment revenue, you will realize that they usually start at a lower point at the first quarter of the year. If you can see Q1 2023 and Q1 2024, it starts to rise from there. I would expect the same for 2025 to start at a lower base and increase throughout the year. Sustaining 60% growth is definitely possible. For the embedded segment, I think for the revenue wise, from a Y on Y perspective, they actually decreased by 3%. AMD did share that they do expect the revenue to stabilize and slightly improve in 2025 because they do have a partnership with Cisco and IBM in the second half of 2025. So I think from expectation perspective, we can expect maybe a low digit growth in the revenue for the embedded segment. But I won't focus too much on this because this is a very small segment of the business and the growth is in the low single digits. Now we move on to the most important part, which is the data center business. If you can see from Q1 of 2024, it had a revenue of 2.3 billion and it increased to 3.7 billion. That is a 57% yearly increase, and that's huge. This is mainly due to the GPU doing well, but it is also due to the CPU business for the data center doing well as well. And I will expect the data center revenue to continue to increase in 2025 as MI350 series GPU is on track for production in mid 2025. If you look at the past revenue for their data center business, you will realize that usually the pickup is at the second half of the year. If you can see from 2022 is the same, 2023 is the same, 2024 it's the same. So 2025 That will be what we will be expecting. And if you hear most of the earnings call from the hyperscalers like Google, Meta, Amazon, they do plan to increase their cloud data centers, but most of it is actually towards the second half of 2025. Not forgetting Microsoft. Currently, AMD has around 10% of the data center market, and that still have room for improvement. And I think with the MI 350 and the MI 400 that's coming up in 2026, they are able to capture even more data center market share. And we are just talking about the GPUs. If you look at their CPUs, they are gaining further ground because their competitor for this is actually Intel, and Intel, as we know, is not doing very well currently. So even Oracle or Google is announcing that they will be adopting more of AMD's server CPUs for their cloud infrastructure. So personally, I think that the business is just going to go up from here. In 2024, there's still some downside for AMD because, for example, their gaming or their embedded business is not doing that well. But for 2025 to 2026, I think there's so many positive catalysts that can drive AMD share price way further.